We are in council chambers at 6 minutes after 6 for a special council meeting with respect to the Cultural Precinct workshop. Councilor members, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been circulated? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Perry, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Mr. Nader Rosny, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure to just do a very quick introduction for the evening. This follows Council's decision on April 26, where Council agreed to a four-stage plan to move forward with the Cultural Precinct. The first step of that process was the approval of the guiding principles for the Cultural Precinct study. The second step was the actual delivery of the repurposing study. And at the same time, our council agreed to notional approval of a budget, something in the order of $5 million, no matter which path they went down, recognizing that there would be significant cost, regardless of the direction. The third step was endorsement of the work that had been done to date, and an approval for a public consultation process, and that's what has been ongoing since May. The process has stretched a little longer than planned, but basically we decided to extend the consultation process well into November to accommodate the number of groups that wanted the presentation and wanted the ability to have input. So what was hoped to be finished by the end of October had to stretch into November. But it was to get even more feedback, as you're going to hear later this evening. So tonight we're here to complete step 3 and position council for the fourth step in the agreed to process, which was for approval of a direction of a concept for the Cultural Precinct. We're looking for direction with respect to Town Park and the Armory separately, as well as the next big decision will be whether to repurpose or demolish the town-owned buildings in Block 1. And we'll have 3 separate discussions about those as part of the workshop tonight. So the intent tonight is to review the process, the information and the feedback we've received throughout the process. We'll have a presentation on that. There are some community delegations that also wish to have some input tonight. And then with the idea that staff would be preparing a final report, we are looking for council's input to the direction that we believe we've heard as staff so far in the consultation process. And again, we'll review that direction. We'll review it for each of the 3 areas, and we'll ask council, we'll ask to pause and ask council for input on those 3 directions that we've heard. And the idea is to make sure that we're all on the same page as we prepare to write a final report for council. So it is at this stage our intent to bring a report to council in January to confirm the direction on the town park, the Armory building, and the Library Square. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to turn it over to Fausto to do the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nader Rosny. Fausto. And Fausto's presentation is going to be about 20 to 25 minutes, correct?
That's correct, about that.
So Councillors Maracas and Thompson to waive procedural bylaw. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Fausto, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Having said that, there are some things that I will go through fairly quickly, only because I know that most of you have heard the presentation many times, so I wouldn't want to repeat those. But essentially in 2009, the town initiated a secondary planning process for the downtown core, as well as the Yonge and Wellington Street corridor. This resulted in the creation of a concept plan urban design strategy for the area now known as the Aurora Promenade, and the implementing policies were included in the town's new official plan. The consultation process for the concept plan and secondary plan was exhaustive and included 4 public consultations, including a 3-day design charrette, 8 Aurora Promenade Steering Committee meetings, 2 meetings with EDAC, 2 meetings with the official plan review and 2C secondary plan steering committee, and as well as the statutory public meeting. One of the key overarching strategies that emerged with respect to the concept plan was that there would be a reinforcement and enhancement of a cultural precinct within the 3-block area of Library Square to Town Park. As you heard Doug say, 2 studies were undertaken in 2015-2016. One was the concept plan for the cultural precinct, prepared by FOTAN, the town's planning consultants, and one was a repurposing study for some of the town-owned buildings. It was prepared by ACOM, and it included the former library and former senior center, as well as the former armory, all within the cultural precinct. The consultation process for the concept plan included visioning workshop, which was held with key staff, Aurora Cultural Center staff, and the Aurora Public Library staff, a counselor's open house, a cultural walk, an online survey, and the development community review of the cultural precinct, which was held in November 2015. Step 2 was the development of the guiding principles, and the consultation for that included a presentation workshop for the draft vision, what we heard, document with town staff, presentation workshop for members of council, a stakeholder and area residents roundtable, a culture quest. This was the second public meeting, and it was really aimed at engaging youth, and the presentation of the concept plan to council, held on December 8th, 2015. The repurposing study was based on 2 consultations. One was a workshop with Town of Aurora reps, held on November 6th of last year. The other one was individual interviews with the community stakeholders, held on November the 19th and November the 20th, as well as December 15th of 2015. As you heard Doug say, in spring of last year, council took the results of those 2 studies and again asked staff to go out and consult on those findings. And a public consultation strategy was endorsed by council the past June. This strategy included public outreach in the form of a survey, an online survey, a social media strategy, as well as public meetings. So where were we? Staff conducted in-person surveys in August, and we were at the Concerts in the Park, the Farmers Market, the Doors Open event, as well as at the Aurora Public Library. We held a meeting with the area ratepayers in September 19th, as well as a public meeting for the Aurora community at large on September 21st. And we met with the Chamber of Commerce November 17th. We also went to all of the boards and committees, and we did this throughout the months of October as well as November. Our last one was the Environmental Advisory Committee on November 24th. During the online survey, as well as the in-person survey and the social media strategy, the concept for Library Square, illustrated here, as well as the concept for Town Park, was on display or was able to be viewed online. So with respect to what we heard, with respect to the in-person survey, the results were that 36% of those interviewed were in favor of maintaining Town Park as is, 34% were in favor of the proposed concept, and another 30% offered some other opinions. Most popular ones were that they like the concept but would like to find a way to keep the ball diamond. People like the splash pad and rink. Some felt the diamond was underutilized. We heard no need to change the band shell. It's fairly new. We heard the need for more seating and benches. We heard the concern expressed that the concept is too modern. And we heard a need for greater recreational diversity, such as tennis and yoga. And it's important to note with respect to the in-person surveys, we collected 90 questionnaires. However, when we were undertaking the surveys, it's important to note that the majority of time we were speaking to not one individual, but typically the survey was done in pairs. And the typical time it took to actually interview somebody was between 10 or 20 minutes. So although there were only 5 simple questions, people were very passionate and offered a lot of their ideas that we tried to capture. The online survey was very close, with the proposed concept coming out on head by 51%. We also heard online that there's a desire for a year-round market, more parking and improved parking, fitness activities for adults, perhaps an outdoor pool or dog park or soccer field, and to create something visually striking. We also had a Twitter poll. 24 participants were involved in that, and the status quo or maintaining town park as is won out by a large amount, by 71%. We also had, as mentioned, 2 public meetings. One was for the area ratepayers. What we heard at that meeting is that the baseball diamond is actually very well used. Why enlarge a splash pad that is underutilized? Turn Mosley Street into a grand walk or promenade. Don't change town park. Spend the money on making improvements to the town park and on repurposing the arbory. 2 days later, we went to the Aurora community at large, and overwhelmingly the sentiment there was to keep the town park as is. A baseball diamond is well used and is being used as a gathering place for the community. And there were also traffic concerns over the new concept. We did a pro and con analysis with respect to the status quo versus redevelopment. With the status quo, you would have some cost savings. The funds that were saved can go to the Armory or Library Square. There was a large amount of citizen support for maintaining the park as is. With this option, we would keep the ball diamond, which we heard very loudly and very clearly that the community feels has a special sense of history in the park and has long been a gathering place for the community. And with this option, we would maintain the current facilities, some which respondents felt some of those were underutilized. Participants were also asked what to do with the Armory. All of these uses came straight from ACOM's repurposing report, and the one with the most responses was a Farmers Market Artisan Fair on both the online survey as well as the in-person survey. And also the need for some sort of a food or beverage establishment also scored very highly. It was a very popular choice. What we heard in terms of Library Square. The in-person survey, 14% were in favor of the square as is, 41% were in favor of the proposed concept, and another 45% offered some other ideas, the most popular being like the concept, but were concerned about the height and density. There were concerns expressed around parking and the need for more parking. We heard we need more restaurants in the downtown, use the former senior center and library for parking, and need for more community and recreation space. With respect to the online survey, it's also very close. However, the concept plan came out ahead with 55% of the vote. In that online survey, we also heard the need for more parking, shops, and restaurants, to have a public square, a water feature, and community space and open space. With respect to the Twitter poll, the status quo came out on top by 56%. At the ratepayers meeting, we heard to tear down the old library senior center, traffic concerns over the increase in density, concerns over funding and the financing of this redevelopment, We heard the need expressed for more classroom space in the area. And again, we heard to turn Moseley Street into a promenade or grand walk. At the public meeting for the Aurora community at large, we heard the redevelopment should contain a significant water feature and courtyard. Library Square needs to be a gathering place, a destination. We need connections between the town park and Library Square. We heard the concerns over the funding of this, and we heard that the area needs a museum or archive. With respect to what we heard at the various boards and committees, generally the boards and committees are in favor of redeveloping Library Square, but essentially would like to see their mandate included in any redevelopment. So for example, what I mean by this is when we went to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, they would like to see accessible parking and accessible facilities included in any redevelopment of the facility, of the square rather. The library board would like to redevelopment to consider more library space. They also indicated that they wanted the library to remain a focal point in the square and remain a gathering space. And the Heritage Advisory Committee expressed that they would like the redevelopment to reflect the heritage character of the area. Again, with a pro-cons analysis, this time repurposing the former senior centers and library versus the demolition. This time we heard more citizen support for demolition of the buildings. This would result in short-term loss of community space. It could potentially result in immediate short-term parking, increase in long-term parking, an increase in residential and commercial density. It would support downtown revitalization and support the town's official plan policies. However, it would cost more. Those individuals that were in favor of maintaining Library Square as is were asked what to do with the former library. With respect to the responses, both online and in person, the ones that came out on top were art studio, community clubhouse, and community classroom. Those same individuals were asked what to do with the former senior center. And not surprisingly, this is a lot closer, but the same results. The uses that came out on top were the art studio, community clubhouse, as well as community classroom. With respect to costs, according to the ACOM study, the cost for repurposing the former library would run $2,180,520. The former library would run $3,484,000, and the former senior center $569,000. This is all exclusive of the 13% HST. What this means is that the combined cost of repurposing the former library and senior center would be $4,053,000. When you add the HST, that would be in excess of $4.6 million. And the combined cost of demolishing the former library and senior center would be approximately $126,000. At this point, what we propose to do and what the agenda calls for is for us to break the presentation, and we would take the delegations at this time.
Thank you, Fausto. Just before you do that, Council, is there any, first of all, Madam Clerk, should we receive this part of Fausto's presentation, then we'll come back? Sure. So a motion then to receive Councilors Tom and Humphreys. Any comments or questions at this point for Fausto on his presentation? Councilor Abel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Fausto. The questions online and the surveys, how many questions were asked, and could we see those questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there were 5 questions. I don't know if I have them with me. I can get them. But essentially, the questions were very simple. They were, for the town park, are you in favor of maintaining the town park in its current conditions, or would you prefer redevelopment? And one of the things that, like I mentioned, the concept plan was on display, and the concept plan was there to generate discussion. So they were able to point to the concept plan or offer up any suggestions that they felt were appropriate. They were also asked specifically, what would you like to see in the armory? And again, the list of uses in my presentation were the uses they had to choose from, came directly from the ACOM report. The exact same question was posed for Library Square. Are you in favor of maintaining Library Square in its current condition, or are you in favor of redevelopment? And then for that particular question, the follow-up was, if you were in favor of the status quo, how would you like to see those two buildings repurposed? And again, they had the list to choose from that I presented tonight.
Councillor?
I just find it a little more revealing if we could see those questions. If there was only 5 of them, they could be sort of posted so that you could kind of see where the numbers were generated and what exactly they were responding to. So that's basically all I'm asking. There were 5 questions, and they were in a multiple choice, and I caught what they were. So, but you do not have the questions, the survey available.
I don't have them with me right now.
Okay. Well, my comment is, I would, for me, it would be valuable.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you very much, Fausto. A long history. If we take into account the surveys, the in-person surveys, in which you said there were 2 people a lot of times, how many responses in all do you think we got on this?
There are 2 numbers, one for the town park, through you, Mr. Mayor, one for the Library Square, one for the town park. As I mentioned, the in-person surveys, we collected the responses. They were typically done in pairs, sometimes even 3s. The numbers are actually outlined on the slide in the presentation. So for Library Square, it would be 78 responses. Online, we received an additional 103, and an additional 18 through the Twitter poll. So 78 we can estimate there were between 125 and 150 if you actually double that number up. With the addition of another 100, that could be 250. 18 votes would run you up to close to 270. And then we had approximately 30 people attending each public meeting. So in total, somewhere over 300. With respect to the town park, it's somewhere around the same figure. A little bit more for the in-person surveys at 90. So again, if we were to double that up, that would be 180. Another 83 online responses, and then 24 for the Twitter poll.
Thank you. And my point is, and some of these people frequent that area more often, which is why we were able to get the in-person surveys done. But we have to keep in mind that we have 61,200 people was the last count. 61,200 people in the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Fausto, for your presentation again. I've had the pleasure of seeing it a few times now. You've been doing this for a little while now, presenting to council as well as to committees and community groups. Have you also had a chance to look at some of the prior reports that were done over the years? And if so, how do those findings compare to your current findings? Do you see them as being similar in what some of the comments were by the community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I didn't go as far back as the 16 years. I did review the repurposing study and the concept plan. My history in the area goes back to 2009, when we did really an unprecedented amount of public consultation to develop that promenade concept plan. Really, we are hearing the same things. As you know, what we've heard Thursday night as well with the workshop that was held here, we heard more of the same. Yeah, again, it's a matter of doing the best we can with respect to the public consultation, given the timeline, given the resources we had, and really gathering that information. And what we try to do is build themes from that information we have. Going back to 2009, we have heard the same types of things with respect to the cultural precinct, Library Square, as well as downtown revitalization in general.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Fausto at this point? Councillor Abel.
Fausto, I'm looking at screen number 20. What we heard, so this is what people told you, that they were repurposing, there was less citizen support, and then for demolition, there was citizen support for the demolition. And I'm just, you know, I have gone through all the reports and been at several of these workshops where we get together. Supports towns' OP policies. Is that what people told you, or is that something you sort of say this is part of the net of what happens if we demolish it? Is it? Because I never heard anyone say that. I'm just wondering if that was said over and over again, you would put it down there because that's what you heard. So could you let me know, and some of the other ones as well. I mean, I have heard that a Library Square would be supportive of downtown revitalization. But some of the other ones I haven't. So can you just let us know how you came upon writing all those things down there?
Fausto?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. No, I didn't hear that it supports the town's official plan policy. That was my opinion. What we did was we wanted to illustrate for council kind of a pros and cons analysis that some of this combined what we heard, but it also, like specifically the one with respect to supporting the town's OP policies. That's a point that I threw in.
Okay, thank you.
That was my opinion.
And also on 25, the cost, the repurposing cost, $4 million plus HST, and the demolishing of 125. Could you give us an idea of what we're getting from the tenants as it is? I don't have to know it in a detail, but is it so much a year? Is there like a couple of grand, 20,000, like between the two? Because you're showing those two costs, but I think it's valuable that I understand what we're getting in revenue while it sits.
Fausto, would you happen to have that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't have that number with me. I don't know if anybody else on staff has that.
Councillor Thompson?
Just off the top of my head, but I think Mr. Downey has commented before, it might be 35,000 or something like that, but it's really just offsetting the cost of operating the facilities. I think his comment in the past has been it's been revenue neutral. So
I'll ask the CAO to comment on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe Councillor Thompson's correct. I believe whatever that number is, it's basically revenue neutral, and the looming concern of staff is that the capital requirements, to be able to continue to use it, there's a significant capital investment that will have to be made.
Yes, and I appreciate that because it's borne out there to repurpose it. Of course, that's been ongoing for a lot of years, how much that would cost. It goes back to reports 2003, et cetera. But it also, when we're weighing out decisions, we should understand that, well, maybe we not want to repurpose it, but while we're holding it, we are getting, you know, there comes a point where you put money, how much we're receiving before you put a demolition and what you do to plan. So I just wanted to get that figure. So about 35,000 a year seems about And that's all I wanted, was just sort of a ballpark. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. CAO.
To you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, the Councilor Abel is correct. The repurposing costs would be to totally overhaul those buildings. The concern of staff is that even to keep sort of heat and light running, that we're going to get drawn into some of those costs on an incremental basis. So, because some of the numbers included in the repurposing study are for new HVAC and for things that could fail.
Any other comments or questions for Fausto with respect to his presentation? All in favor of receiving this portion of Fausto's presentation? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fausto. Great presentation. Appreciate the
Thank you.
depth. We have 2 delegates, Mr. Hurd and Mr. Watts. Mr. Hurd, I believe, is first. Now, Mr. Hurd, you've been here once or twice before, and you know the process, and you dutifully marked off, I have 5 minutes. But looking at yours and Mr. Watts, looking at your presentations, I'm suggesting that 5 minutes may be a little tight. So
Can we waive procedural bylaw now?
Well, that's my job.
I know. Thank you.
So I will ask council to waive procedural bylaw to allow each delegate 10 minutes, but I'm going to hold you to the 10 minutes because we do seem to be in front of, or have a long
I
evening
think
in
that
front
would
of
be
us.
amazing.
So if someone would move and second that, so Councillors Humphrey and Peary, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Gentlemen, you both have 10 minutes, and we'll have our vicious timekeeping clerk keep track of that.
Thank you, Mayor Daw and members of council. I am extremely honored to stand in front of you tonight. You have no idea. No, I think you do. Because I remember several years ago, I stood here almost begging and pleading to please do the right thing, to acquire the armories. And I spoke very passionately about personal journey and how my dad, who worked for the Department of National Defense for 35 years as the Chief Civilian Inspector, cared for that building and many other buildings and bases across Canada. And he loved that building like it was his own. And unfortunately, he passed away from asbestosis, from his job. My grandfather fought in both wars, the First and Second World War. And he came to this town after the First World War, a broken man with PTSD. And I remember saying at that meeting, asking you to acquire that building. We need that building, not just for our veterans, but for the so many people in the community right now that need us. I remember Carl Bray in the second go-around said to me, he says, David, I'm seeing it now. This was the Church Street School. I said, what are you seeing, Carl? He says, what you were talking about. What was I talking about? He says, there's a lot of people in Aurora hurting. I said, how do you know? And he labeled off all the agencies in the Town Park area: Canadian Mental Health Association, Welcoming Arms, Freedom, Addictions Foundation of Canada. So yeah, I know, Carl. I was one of those people about 12 years ago. So the Town Park is a very important cog of community healing. I think we need that right now. And I think this project is going to bring our community together. So how do we draw people into the downtown core from downtown? Well, I think it's our incredible rich history. And over the last little while, I think some of you have heard me comment about some of the really weird stuff. We've been digging into history to find stuff that some people find history boring. So I attached ghosts to history, and that's been pretty exciting. So now we're finding out history about Aurora that we know that can brand our community. Did you folks know that a very famous man trained at the St. Andrews College here in Aurora, and he made the Toronto Argonauts Football Club, and he played 3 games for the Argos, and we don't know whether he was fired or let go or he quit, but apparently his quote was, he found the game too violent, too rough. That was Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. We've now connected him to Aurora, so now we've got Aurora mania going on, maybe. So, how do we bring it from the downtown and back? Mosley Street. I agree 100% by acquisitions of some of the buildings along Mosley, which are zoned. Residential, commercial, retail can go in there. Building Mosley Street out by drawing people in, for example, using Shelley Ware's Aurora Borealis to light up those beautiful trees and draw people into an oasis. which is the town park. Just like Fausto said, I also spoke to a lot of people in the town, including dangling the carrot on social media on some of the sites. And what I heard resoundingly was, leave it alone, especially the ball diamond. That was really passionate. So they said, leave it alone was the common theme. So what I'm going to suggest to you tonight is an option, a town park enhancement. We're not saying change it. We're saying massage it, make it cooler. So the first one would be that a welcoming point entrance would be at the three corners, in other words, would be Moseley and Wells Street. We would hopefully get those trees nicely trimmed and put a nice gate in there. And there's that corner, and you can see there's a large, nice little area of land there. You can see the back of the band shell, remember that? So we would enter from that area to an Oz-like oasis and see the back of the band shell. These are the areas of focus would be. The red would be the entrance. The white would be an extension on the back of the band shell to allow more space for backstage-like plays. The blue is a marquee. So my point is, what we would do is that corner, we would draw something in using like Newmarket's theme, only what we want to do is we want to draw people to a community, a smaller oasis of the park. So we would have kind of a gateway at that corner. At the back of the band shell, we would have marquees to let people know what was going on in the park and in the community. So they're drawing into the back of the band shell. Once they came around the front of the band shell, we'd answer some tough questions. That's a tough park to sit in. It really is. People have to bring their lawn chairs and everything. So we would bring in some seating like this. There's a side view. Gets people vertical. Notice, by the way, it has backs on it for support. Our current benches don't have that. So we would come in and see that. Still allowing, by the way, the front, more seating for accessibility for people that are in wheelchairs, or some of them who come on beds. Seating like that would also allow us to a marketing concept to sell, for example, chair pads with the Aurora brand on it, or maybe our heritage. Here's where it gets interesting. In the park, what we would propose is directly in front of the armory. Roller skating has always been a big part of our community. Currently, skating last year I think was like a 0. It didn't freeze. Well, we're suggesting we bring a skate pad in this area. So the gold is a skate pad. It would be in front of the armory, so we'd open up the armory into the park, a patio in front of the armory. So the sight lines are all there. The blue would be a washroom and skate rental. There's the area we're talking about. This is a photograph I took in Hamilton in the nighttime. Went down to check out their pad. By the way, there's nothing down at their lake. There's nothing really to see. It's not very exciting. But they go to skate, daytime and nighttime. When I was there one night, I watched them rent 96 pairs of roller skates at $6.50 a pair. The people age groups were 7 to 70. And I went around and talked to dozens and dozens of people. I was with a friend who's here tonight. And they were from Woodstock, London, Goderich, Toronto, Hamilton, Barrie, to skate. That's why they were there. So what we're suggesting is kind of a cool Nathan Phillips Square concept, but old school. You know what? We don't have anything fancy than that. Make it like arches with barn lights. That would be cool. So there's the area where the skate rental and pad, we would enhance that. A lot of wasted space, no offense. Hamilton started out with a shipping container and a Trillium grant. And I think the first skate night they had in the wintertime, they had 1,000 people show up. But we have that many in the park. So the baseball, I got to rush here. The baseball, what we're saying is leave the diamond, but enhance it. So we're not saying build a field of dreams with a giant grandstand or anything. What we're saying is make it cool, make it old school. So some of the old brick that we're going to get from some of the companies that are going to knock down some of the old buildings, there is some out there already. We do a low-rise wall along in the inside of the fence, a couple of rows of seats. And by doing that, we can bring back through, say, Shelley Ware, there used to be slow pitch tournaments with like 32 teams. And that gentleman is Whipper Billy Watson, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And Bucky McClarty, who did the slow pitch tournaments that led to a Citizen of the Year honor. 32 teams, mixed slow pitch. It was a great, and there's the branding of it from back in '89. How cool it would be for young people or people playing those tournaments. You get a run and you look up at the scoreboard. I remember winning a pie eating contest at 7 years old in the town park. I still won't shut up about it. Oh. Okay, so how do we do it? Partnerships. TD Canada Trust, I know, they're spending so much money on music promotion right now. The skate pad, fitness. You got Activate Aurora. Music really makes people activate. And the baseball diamond, that's a slam dunk, I think. There's going to be sports people saying, you know, no, take our check, not theirs. So, here's where we are now. I believe it. We present it out there. We go and sell it. We all believe in it as a community and passionate. They will come. Not just for the baseball. Everything. We're going to be like a Stratford with plays, comedies going on in the comedy. Who in Ontario is doing a like Yuck Yuck style comedy nights outdoor? Only we have to censor the community so it doesn't go out to our kids to hear it. The Armory becomes a fundraising concept. I think you heard me once at council. We did a pop-up book sale with some donations. We did $520 in like 5 hours that we gave to the Aurora Museum and Archives. It was awesome. And by the way, it let people know where the Armory was. And there we are. Oh, we could sell those chair pads in advance to raise money for the grandstands. How cool is that? So where are we now? I only got 18 seconds, so I have to get this point across. Where we are. I think in Aurora right now, we need to start over. I think for the past many years, I think a lot of you know, it's kind of been a rough time. There's been some divisions, we didn't get a lot of good media for a while. And what I'm seeing now is, you know, the other night when the Monday meeting was here, and all the people were in groups, I was looking, and there was people in that room I know probably hadn't talked to each other in a long time. Still some healing to do. So I think what we should really do is look at also branding our community, rebranding it. Aurora, you're in good company, had its time. But right now, we need company in the downtown core and at the town park and help to rebuild. So, how cool is this? Vaughan said, the city above Vaughan. It's a two-way statement. We're on the map, we're just above Vaughan, but we're better than Toronto. They did it so we're better. Aurora, a passion for people. Not just the people here that we're going to reach out to now to build community together for a new era of community, of healing. Those people with autism
Mr. Hurd, can you?
Yep, at Carrie's Place and the people in those mental health facilities, all of our people who need community and the people who are going to come here visiting and tourists, they're going to feel that awesome energy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Thank you. There's some great ideas in there. Very, very much appreciated. Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphreys, motion to receive Mr. Hurd's delegation. Any comments or questions for Mr. Hurd? Councillor Gardner, Councillor Peary, Councillor Tom.
Thank you for all the work, all the dreams, visions you have for the town. The roller skating one is interesting, because I know we have a history of that, but I haven't heard anybody in the discussions speak to that. Have you heard any public comment on having rollers? I've heard a lot of comment about enhancing the skating in the town park.
So the enhancing the skating, obviously if you put down a concrete pad, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gardner, you allow, again, skating to go year-round. So it's ice skating in the winter, roller skating in the summer. I'm kind of disappointed because I did have a long conversation with the consultant, Mr. Diamond, and this was discussed extensively, and I don't know how it slipped through the cracks. What I do know is tonight, I have a young lady, Trina, who's with me tonight, who travels 2 rinks. She goes down to Hamlet, she goes to Mississauga, and there's people from all over, and they're packed. It's a wonderful thing. By the way, the gentleman beside her, if I can just say, his name is James Horton. James Horton is a gentleman that worked at the Canadiana roller rink with myself. We saw the thousands of people that were drawn in from all over Ontario and the northern United States for skating back in the 90s. And it was incredible, absolutely incredible. Jimmy was one of the gentlemen I trained as a disc jockey. I was a disc jockey for a long time in this community. And Jimmy was a troubled young man looking for community. Yeah, and by the way, James is still a DJ, and he won the Canadian DJ Championships, and now he's volunteering to help us with this dream as a DJ. Volunteering. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor? You done?
I'm done.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Councillor
Thank
Beery.
you.
Councillor Beery, Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, thanks for coming out. I think we all appreciate it when you do. To be honest, I'm not sold on the roller skating rink, but I think as part of a multi-use and doing different things on different nights, I think it would be a great tie-in. A specific, park that is only used for roller skating, I'm not sure, but if it's in place to supplement all the other great things that we have in Town Park, I think it could work, and I think that's a great idea. So I just want to thank you for all the work you've put into this. It's greatly appreciated.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can respond to that. We're not suggesting a roller skating park or a roller skating building or anything like that. This is like in that Hamilton photo, it is just they've laid down a concrete skate pad, they flood it in the winter, and you roll on it in the summertime. It can be used for other things too.
Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphreys.
Thanks, Mayor Daw. Thanks, David, for coming out again. Really great ideas, and yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of great ideas in here, and we're not trashing Town Park. You're enhancing Town Park, and I think that's really neat. So my one question though was you talked about framing entrances on the three corners. So would you envision something similar? So kind of like welcome to Town Park, but at all three corners to enter the park. I'm not sure. You just showed one option behind the band shell, but is it your intention that there'd be one at I forget what street it is, but the southern side and the southeastern side as well?
What I can envision is that one entrance, because our intent is really to draw people in from the downtown core. The other four corners, I think, can be enhanced, definitely, with beautiful brickwork. But I think the main focus is, again, that connectivity between the downtown or Library Square and up Mosley Street with all the retailers, because we want to promote business here too, right?
Great. Well, again, thanks for coming out. Thanks for the ideas. These are great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, David, for coming out. And the vision, the passion is so evident. Well, I always love to hear you explain your visions, and I think there's so many of these that can come to fruition. And one of the things that I really liked is, you mentioned the roller skating or whatever. It's a platform, and when that came up, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to have the farmers market in the park? When you have a platform like that, you can actually have the vendors right on that platform. So you can actually have a full-blown in the park farmers market, which would not impede any of the road closures that are happening right now. So fantastic idea, and I could see being multi-purpose as well. Love the sign, as Councillor Tom mentioned, the sign welcoming to Old Aurora, Old Town Park. That's really, really inviting, and I think showcases our special park right in the middle of town. And there's just so much here, and what I really love a lot about it, if you've come with some answers, like how do we make it happen? So you've got suggestions on how we can make it happen, not necessarily here's some ideas, okay, you guys figure it out. So thank you for coming forward with that and with some solutions to make some of these visions come through. Thank you.
If I could, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Humphreys, and thank you, all the councillors, for your kind comments. The type of surface that you saw that was in Hamilton, as I said, I wasn't just a DJ, I was actually a manager at the Canadiana roller rink, and that building, we had to go through transition to make it work. That building, because of that style of floor, that concrete flooring, we were able to have roller skating, flip in 90 minutes into a full bingo facility with hundreds of people, to a Canadian music competition event, to professional wrestling, and then back to roller skating again. I'm happy to be part of that. So I've seen this all before. It can be done, 100%. Indoors or outdoors.
Councillor.
And just one last thing. When I first came to Aurora in 1990, well, actually 96, and then I moved in 99, it was the rage, the roller rink. And I hear a lot of stories from the fire department on how much they loved it. And they want to see you come back. You probably know those stories. But yeah, I think they'd be thrilled to hear about something like this. Thanks.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, ask Don Lewis how he ended up becoming a resident in Aurora, and how he became a police officer for York Region, and he'll tell you it was actually going to a roller rink in Oak Ridges. There's a story for you.
Shades of the Terrace. Shades of the Terrace. Councillor Abel.
Is that the terrace on Mutual Street? Yeah, the landmark. great presentation. You know, when I first got this, I thought it was going to be our staff reporting, because this is a very professionally done presentation. So I thank you very much for that.
I'd like to work with staff.
You know, we should be adopting something along those lines. But I mean, you've got great ideas all around. And I would just share that I was in New York at Bryant Park, which is right by a library, the Central Library. And they put a skating rink there, and they just put it in about 4 years ago, because I'd been there before. And on this day, in early November, it was packed. It was 60 degrees, but they had artificial ice there. And they were selling, renting skates at 20 American. And the place was lined up crazy. You couldn't, I mean, I can't imagine. So the idea of creating a revenue for sustainability is very appealing. A little here, some cushions. I mean, you have what it takes to make something, realize and sustain it. So I much appreciate that, and taking in bits and pieces from other successes like that new market, marquee, the communication piece about what's upcoming. Again, you've captured what we're lacking and what we need, and you just presented very, very easily with all those features that you've shown: communication, vision, operating, all those things. Now multi-use. And I don't think it's a huge investment compared to what we talk about in other things. So this is so valuable, us engaging in our community, taking in their ideas and moving forward with them, and you just illustrated that perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's nothing else, all in favor of receipt? Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening, all of you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Watt. Oh, and I forgot to ask David, but Mr. Watts, if you give us your name and your address, and you have 10 minutes, sir. The clock counts down to 5, and then it'll be reset. We couldn't figure out how to set it at 10.
Excellent, thank you. Christopher Watts, Banff Drive. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Aurora Heritage Authority to give you kind of a big grandiose vision on the adaptive reuse for the Aurora armories. And I'll be talking a lot faster than David and probably not as deep. We've got quite a lot to get through, so. Tonight, you're going to be going through and trying to reconcile the repurposing plan in front of you with the cultural precinct plan. So in getting to the armory on the repurposing study, there was kind of 4 different uses in front of you. All 4 of those you just heard staff go through and kind of give you some survey results, with the farmers market and the restaurant kind of coming forward a lot. One of the things that basically is lost when we get into the cultural precinct plan is effectively there is no innovative design elements, no integrated land use, really no engaging programming, anything to serve as a creative hub. And those repurpose pieces really don't speak to anything that's going to set Aurora apart. So what we're here today to do is kind of take you through a vision along with resources that we think can achieve that. So I give you the Aurora Farmery, which is an empowerment center. Some might think it's just a farmer's market, which it is not. We're going to take 4 different layers and merge them together in this space and get them out into the community. Those layers are basically education, community, exchange, and sustainability. And I'm going to start with exchange. So of course there is a farmer's market, but not a farmer's market. It's a 4-season market. We need greater presence of the market. We even heard that on Thursday night with the public input session, where people are complaining they don't have a grocery store to go to. Okay, why don't we have a grocery store? We even heard that through councillors and staff saying it doesn't meet certain thresholds. Okay, so let's get some more farmers market going. And I think one of the things that is kind of an easy win or easy victories, plural, is that shelter space. You have a fallback. It provides you everything from current stability, security pieces, a consistency, and provides all of those things an outdoor market really doesn't do. The other thing it leads itself well into is my next point, which is an evening market. So a farmer's market's great on Saturday, but if you can't make it, you don't make it. If we take the evening approach and also layer in a Wednesday or Thursday night market into that space, bingo, you've just got some evening vitality, but you've also allowed people to come midweek to pick up stuff that they may have been unable to get. which leads me into actually holding a store or a small farm store, which is actually more of just supporting community-supported agriculture, something we're not really doing at the moment. I move Exchange now into more of the sharing economy model. There's a kitchen library concept that's been very favorable over the last 2 years in Toronto. I won't go too much into it. You can get into it quite online. But the good thing here is a kitchen library is pretty easy setup. It's also something that can get held over and folded into what the library is looking to do by expanding their presence and some of what their programming speaks to through their needs assessment report. I'm moving along the library side to also a seed library. Seed libraries actually exist right now in York Region in Newmarket, Markham, Vaughan, and this year, Richmond Hill. We don't have one. Farmers Market, as it stands here in Aurora, is actually hyphenated with an and artisan fair. And we're pushing a lot of stuff into one market space that maybe could be expanded out, maybe more purpose-driven. There's a lot of stuff in the farmers market that maybe would be better served under a different umbrella and market, so we see expanded opportunities for different markets. The kitchen component's going to come up a little bit more tonight and some other pieces I've got, but having an industrial kitchen in the space that actually is rented out provides extra revenue, but it actually provides an opportunity for those vendors that have to go to other strip malls to actually come into the same space that they're doing their selling by having that space available to them. It also provides an opportunity for York Region as their Public Board of Health to have a space where they can use it for demonstrations, seminars, and what have you. Tastings, obviously a nice component to bring some evening vitality and other things into that space alongside once you've got a kitchen going. I'm showing samples here from, you're going to see a lot of stuff tonight that might be lifted from things like Evergreen Bricksworth and Winchwood Barnes, but wristbands and what have you. We're going to move on to education. So the kitchen itself flips over, multi-purpose, into a teaching kitchen. And you can do programming with teaching kitchens both in the daytime and the evening by targeting two different kind of markets. So you can get the date nights, you can get the seniors, and use that space accordingly. It'd be also nice to see what reaction there would be as a satellite for some post-secondary culinary institutions to use this space as kind of a showpiece, and people that are local to the region can use. Workshops, conferences, and symposiums, big part of bringing these things together. The examples I've shown here, and I'll go through them very quickly, is University of Toronto doing stuff on food insecurity. We've got stuff from Kitchener, and then obviously the York Region Food Network, which has great programming, but pretty much kind of stuck out of the way on an industrial bypass, so it'd be nice to get them into the space. And we have some models, some people are working with us to deal with stuff from Echo Learning Centre at Ontario Place. Would it be kind of the realm of comprehension to try and attract and use it as a backdrop for a TV show? I don't think so. Day camps, trying to bring yourself back into a space of educating people and kids primarily with food as a tool, and doing it creatively with one of the things we thought of is make your own ration, which is an empowerment piece that kids can take with them from the space. The space has been used for doing drills, boot camps, and why not continue that trend, pairing it with a healthy meal or snack from farmers' vendors and whatever from the kitchen. This one's an interesting one because effectively it's Newmarket's loss and it could be Aurora's gain. There was an aquaponics in Main Street, Newmarket. It was quite large and set up in scale called Upstream. You can look up through the York Region Food Network. But this idea of having those technologies and demonstration pieces within inside of that space can be a draw and a great educational tool. This one's a little outside of the footprint of the Armory, but we thought, well, maybe we do a Hall of Fame, Hall of Farm, but why don't we get it onto the floor? So you get that idea of self-discovery with it. Why don't we do it as a walk of fame, but in this case it would be a walk of farm. So you'd be honoring both past agricultural achievements and farms within inside of the region and really make yourself a draw. which lends itself to my next slide, which is also like the library, the museum is looking to push outside their walls. Well, there is a considerable wealth of stuff, and I've had to trip over it and get through it in the basement of 22 Church Street. There's lots of it in the archives, and we'd love to see it kind of brought back into a living space. I'm halfway through. There's 30 of these pieces. Now we're getting ourselves into community. Anyone who goes to the farmer's market knows one of the center draws is the cafe. It'd be nice to place it into the center of the space. And we've actually started making strides into claiming one of these temporary bar systems that can be used on casters and kind of rolled away so it doesn't inhibit the center of the space and brought out when needed. This is an obvious one, and it speaks to being one of the primary uses is the ability to be an offshoot for warming and cooling. I don't need to get into that too much. This one's a little bit more fun, and this is the idea of using the open space and maintaining it, but setting up for community dinners by way of the mess hall format. So I've listed things like pancake breakfast and corn roasts and stuff, but it'd be fun to partner with the Legion for having some of their dinners in this space, giving them some more presence. So working with one of our members of the task force is we've actually gone and done a footprint study of the space and started to conceptualize doing things like a Harvest Hero Clash, where we would take your first responders, your police, and your fire and bring them out for doing a cook-off event in that space. And I think it would lean itself really, really well.
1 minute, please, Mr. Watts.
Okay. The essentials market is a concept, a little bit of flipping on its head of a food bank. And we do have a food bank. Again, you're looking at over industrial bypass, so it'd be nice to get it back into the space where it has kind of vacated from, and also in a space where it's associated with health and vitality and sustainability. Pop-up cinema is another possibility. The space, because it has garage doors, can definitely be used to accommodate other feature sets that can accommodate a nice context to films, whether it be props or what have you. And the really, really free market is a neat way. I know there's a proposal right now where, say, space kind of for trading is kind of an issue. People don't sometimes have the ability to have a curbside to do pickups and what have you, so bringing it into this space seems to lead to the thematics quite well. And I'm realizing I'm out of time, but I've got sustainability, which is a big component of this. We see the armory, once it goes through not only its remediation pieces, but through like a comprehensive energy audit to power the park. I know that's an issue right now. There is issues just trying to even deal with powering lights and what have you. So it'd be nice to get this thing to net zero and work sending the message for empowerment. Rainwater harvesting, obviously the roof size is quite scalable or quite sizable and can basically provide us with water. There's some interesting methods for catchment that aren't too ungodly and can definitely be used as an educational tool. Gleaning's already happening through the York Region Food Network, but as a hub, it would be nice to continue that trend and maybe make it more of a mission and grouping people out to go and grab it, food where we can find it through our market vendors. Composting can't be obviously held on site, but with the Joint Ops Center, there's obviously more space for composting to happen, but it can be a catchment for that. Right now with the market, we're not doing that, so there's a lot of food waste that basically just happens, so we're not really having a green market by that stretch. Repair Cafe is somewhat self-explanatory. Having a lot of success with these down in the city is also a great space for people to bring in broken, whether it's appliances or whatever, into the space and then try and divert stuff from landfill. One of my more favorite pieces is going back to the salvage and reclamation from the war effort and really using it as a tool for staff. So we know that batteries are a problem getting into landfill, and we had thought maybe we do clear bags and we'll get rid of the batteries from the landfill, and that didn't happen. So what about using your market to have people bring back things that you want out of the landfill and do incentivize an exchange? So you bring back X batteries, we give you X produce during that market day, and use that as closing the loop.
Mr. Watts, could you wrap it up, please?
I guess I'll have to cut it short. I still
Oh,
have,
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Can we
Well,
keep 5
we've
more?
already extended it once, and we've gone over probably by about 3 minutes already. So quickly, Mr. Watts, if you
Almost.
could wrap up.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, like-
I guess I'll have to cut the presentation in half. There's a lot of pieces here that speak to it, but this is a workshop format, so maybe it's more useful if, when you get to this item later in your evening, if you want to call me back, I'm more than amicable to continuing the presentation, just so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the meeting. But I think there's a lot here that basically speaks to more of the sustainability and business plan components of executing this that would kind of get lost, so.
Thank you. First of all, presentation to receive, excuse me, motion to receive Mr. Watts' delegation. Councillor Peary, I'm sorry, Councillor Peary and Councillor Kim. Comments or questions for Mr. Watts at this point? Councillor Peary, Councillor Humphries, Councillor Abel, Councillor, everybody.
Everyone, okay. Chris, just wanted to say thank you for all this. I think it's a great concept. My only little bit of, it's not even necessarily criticism. I think the armory might be too small for all of this. I would, personally myself, I see this in the old library, especially with the reinforced floors. I think a larger space would lend itself well to this. And I think it wouldn't be too cramped. It could all work. And I think there would be more than enough people going to it to make it worthwhile. So that's my only sort of criticism, but that's everything else I think is great. There is some other work going on behind the scenes that we aren't able to talk about, but I think all of this would tie in really well with that. So just wanted to say thank you, and I look forward to seeing this in some capacity, because I think it is a great idea.
Thank you. Again, I don't see this working because it's purposely fit to the building. That being said, in slides that I didn't get to, it does show that multi-adaptability of the space, where the space is best offset to use for this. So I can appreciate your thought of pressures. I have thought of them as well, but there are materials in here that speak to offsetting that pressure.
Councillor Humphries, Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, Chris, for coming forward tonight. The ideas are tremendous, and from my perspective, they're quite visionary. That building, we've been wondering, what to do, where to go with that, and you've provided such incredible ideas. I know there's lots more to share here, and we're going to be able to go through it hopefully later in the right timing of that, and maybe when we're actually speaking about the armory itself. But what I do love about it is there's ideas, and then there's the benefits, and then there's implementation and sustainability. So everything sort of in a package, a program that is really well researched, well thought out of, and I'm really excited that you brought this forward. And to Councillor Peary's point, I think there's great opportunity here to see a lot of this come to fruition. So very exciting, and looking forward to other conversation around the table. Hopefully we'll get back here to finish it up.
Thank you.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Chris, for coming forward. It really shows that you've taken time, and there's some thought, I call critical thought, that speaks to community options, and there's lots there to work in that space. I don't think you were trying to show that it was not big enough. You were just giving us clearly, this is an opportunity. I know when we purchased the armory, it was meant to be part of the park. Bring it back. It belongs to the public. So it's a matter, and I said the same about Mr. Hurd, it's a matter of coming forward and engaging in the community. And of course, this is another great presentation. I mean, there's just so much in here. When I compare, it compares to nothing. So I really appreciate that. You capture so many different points. I don't know where to really begin, but I have had the pleasure of working on some of this conceptually a few months back. But you do have the path to victory. and it shows how we can move that way. I like, and I think it's valuable when there's a plan put there and it sort of makes sense in the grand scheme of things, and that's how we should be looking at anything that we have, especially when it's public. We know the value of the cultural precinct. It is an absolute gem, and the town park is like no other. And you do refer to Winchwood Barns and the new Brickworks. I mean, it's just fantastic. We will not be making any decisions behind the scenes, so I hope you can believe that I am all for engaging and moving forward for a public domain to do public things that enrich and opportunity. I did see in London a very similar building used, and it revitalized the whole area, the East London, which we were told years ago we were recommended not to go into, and now is a thriving, safe environment where people get opportunities to showcase a talent and then go on and make successes. Not everyone, but so I thank you very much, and I appreciate all the sort of ideas. And that's where we should be going.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson, Gartner, Tom Kim.
Thanks, Mayor Don. Thank you very much, Chris. It certainly, as you stated from the outset, would create such a creative hub, and certainly aligns with our strategic plan about being innovative. I know that you know that you have many more slides, but if the Mayor will indulge me, I just want to ask you a question about your slide about the revenue mix and just about sustainability for it. Can you just sort of elaborate on it?
The slide that is up right now behind you actually speaks to it as well. It gives you a week of a glance kind of a snapshot of, so if you think 30 things and trying to tell them to you in 10 minutes is obviously difficult. It's not going to fit if you turn them on at the same time. There's no way that would be operating at the same time. The idea is to have them turn on at the right times. So that's your week snapshot. And I think one of the good things with that snapshot is, if you look at the bottom, I've tallied up the hours. You're looking at programming that will kind of turn that building on for like 64 hours a week. And you notice in the bottom, there's evening programming happening every day. If you just go with a market, you're going to get a 6-hour window versus 64. So the idea, yes, and if council wants, I can go through to the revenue slide, but it speaks to the same thing. It's overlapping this for maximum revenue generation, which is one of the pieces that comes out of the repurposing study.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Gartner.
That was exactly my question, and I want to thank you. This is all incredible.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Tom, Councillor Kim.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for making the presentation. In fact, my question was the same as Councillor Thompson's and Councillor Gartner's, but just giving you that opportunity to expand on some of those slides that we weren't able to get to, because like everyone said, I mean, the amount of work that's gone into this it's really incredible, and it's impressive, and I really appreciate it from my perspective, because it kind of centers all these ideas that are kind of floating around out there, but you've kind of centered them all into one concept. And not only that, but I really enjoy how you've even taken the week at a glance, because that, again, it's hard to think of 30 concepts gelling together. So I appreciate that. And again, if you have anything else to add on the slides you didn't get to, you can answer my question by going into it.
Thank you for that as a follow-up opportunity. I'll take it, provided, again, the chair is okay with it. This week at a glance piece does answer it. Another one is visually looking at how the space would be configured, which is the next set of slides. I think I had to get through all of the potential 30 uses. The next set of the slides answers actually how it comes together.
So that's page 21 and 22, I think, right?
Correct.
Cool. Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. That was very impressive. I think the way you pretty well connected everything from policies, revenue, sustainability, environment, education. I mean, most people can't even connect two of those things. So the fact that you were able to connect all of those things, it was impressive. And I think one of the obvious things that I noticed, which everyone else did, was I thought you were displaying some of the options that could go into it, but you're putting in all these things. Have you considered, while you're putting this together, one concept or an activity that would be that could be the flagship that in which all the other activities revolve around, or that's not really something that you envision?
Mr. Watts?
I think to answer that, the best approach for this is to phase in different elements in each of those 4 areas and do that. You wouldn't try and turn this all in one go. That being said, you'd probably pick 1 or 2 from each area and run them. There's some very good quick wins. I'd get to them if I could finish, but again, maybe that's something that can be held over for later.
And my last question is this something unique, this concept, or have you encountered this flexible kind of farm workspace in other communities, or is this the first of its kind as you know it?
I think one of the things I was trying to do was answer an alignment with all the policies you'll see in 4 pages for 4 of those different areas, that they align with the heritage aspect, that you end up getting the tourism, culinary tourism component because it's baked in and you can't get this anywhere else. One of the things that is a really interesting marketable piece about the Armory is that the Armory itself was built under the leadership of a reeve, which was Joseph Fleury. So you get a swords to plowshares back to, or plowshares to swords back to plowshares narrative that really anchors the rest of the ability to go market this. It's a full circle story, and it really creates that empowerment piece. I don't see that happening anywhere else in town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Thank you for your, so did I cut you off too early?
After. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the slides with the configurations and stuff. So again, one of my questions is, in terms of like repurposing the physical space, you're looking for kind of repurposing like a large open space in the middle, the kitchen on the south side, and that way you can incorporate some of these elements, or even elements we might think of down the road or something, in a way that is it's functional for all of them, as opposed to just repurposing it for one use or another.
Absolutely. And I think the work we've done is I've taken the CAD drawing of that building, overlaid it on Google Maps for you, and I've given you 3 different kind of feeds. So I've actually built upon the permeable paving solution for the outside of the park to basically build in and allow the load in. Kind of carried over from the repurposing study, opening up the apertures into Town Park. But in this case, there's your open area being used for a mess hall. Your washrooms are centrally located basically to one side of the building. It gives you 1/4 of the building to do your library, or your kitchen. Inside of your kitchen, your quartermasters still exist to do library space. But then if you flip this over and you do your market, I've left market outside, but in inclement weather, your fallback. And in Paris, what you do is you put your cafe in the middle and you run your vendors around. That's what this ends up achieving. To carry this forward, there's your adaptability to the space by roll-up doors on the other side. And I think your opportunities are vast in being able to actually leverage what you have. The architectural salvage program of the town actually has barn beams from a barn. Why not put them into a space instead of pay to store them? If we get into how you showcase this off at a greater thing, it's, let's utilize some of the canvas that we already have. Let's do some creative eye-catching things. This one has to be my favorite because it puts the whole building on wheels. And what we don't do right now, we have it almost as an afterthought, is we go into a parade and Newmarket kind of has this beat with just vehicle wrap. This idea of using this to get out there and have it bring back into the space through multi-purpose kind of gives that extension reach, which again you wouldn't have if this was rolled out in any other space. I don't know if that answers your questions.
Yeah, I think it does, and I appreciate the expansion on some of the slides we weren't able to get to. And again, I think it's great tying into the history, especially. I mean, that tidbit on Joseph Fleury is really neat, and the Armory as well. I mean, huge history with the town, so and the Canadian Force and everything. So again, just thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Thank you for the work that you and the effort that you put into that. Obviously, very detailed. All in favor of receipt, please. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Niederosny, we're going to ask Mr. Filippetto to come back.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, where we thought we'd pick up now is on slide 26 of the presentation. And the intent now is to sort of summarize what we've heard as staff. And again, this is in preparation, in anticipation of us preparing a report for council in January. So Fausto would basically lead us through 3 sort of mini workshop sessions within the whole session.
Okay. Just Councilor Maracas, quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually wouldn't mind putting forward a motion, but I'm wondering, is this the appropriate time? Or would it be after Fausto speaks?
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have number 7 on the agenda is council direction regarding final report, so that might be the appropriate time to bring forward a motion.
Okay, so I'll just wait then until after Fausto's finished. Thank you.
Fausto, have you got, what are you going to do for us right now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we will do at this point is take you through a theme discussions of what we heard regarding the preservation of the town park in its current state, the repurposing of the armory, and redevelopment of Library Square. So after taking in all of the information and analyzing what we heard through the in-person survey, online survey, Twitter poll, the public meetings, we believe as staff that could build themes to describe the results of what we heard. And the first one is we believe we've heard quite clearly to preserve town park, do not redesign and spend the money on maintenance and enhancements to the existing features. If council were to choose this option, the possible next steps could be to consider specific enhancements to the town park, and also to communicate to the community that the main features within the park, such as the ball diamond, the band shell, etc., will remain in the town park. What I'm going to do is go through all 3 of those, and then we'll step back to number 1, and we can have a theme discussion on each point. The next one, what we believe that we heard, taking into consideration all of the results of the surveys, is that to repurpose the armory for either a farmer's market or artisan fair, or food or beverage establishment, or something that is adaptable and more integrated into the town park. The next steps in this regard would be to undertake the required estimates for renovations to bring the building up to code and to ensure the long-term integrity of the structure. And also to initiate a design exercise for the repurposing of the building. And finally, we believe that we've heard through the results of the consultation to redevelop Library Square, and that the potential uses could include residential and commercial mixed-use buildings with shops and restaurants, community space, public square, water feature, and parking solution. The next steps in this regard, if council were to choose that option, would be to relocate the tenants of the former library and senior center, to demolish the buildings, and to undertake design exercise for the redevelopment of Library Square. And then finally, the next steps, the final step in the latest round of consultation, would be to bring a final report to the General Committee of Council, and that is scheduled for January the 24th of next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Fausto. So back to the first item, which is with respect to town park.
So we're going to discuss, but then when we get to item 7, that's when we're going to make motions with respect to this stuff. Okay.
So my suggestion, Council, rather than me just take names of people who wish to speak, I suspect everybody would like to have some input. Are you okay if we just kind of go around in a circle? And at this point, I'll start with Councillor Perry, and then we can work our way back. Is that? I think it'd just be easier to manage, especially since I'm the one that has to keep track.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to preserving Town Park, I agree that we should look at preserving Town Park. I think there are some small tweaks that we can do to make things better. The first, I would probably reorient the band shell. It's facing sort of on a 45-degree right now. Ideally, I'd like to see it face the armory dead on. And then that allows you to put, you know, a permeable space to allow skating to go through. And I do think that we need to be expanding the washroom and kitchen facilities so that people can go out and get a coffee and for whatever other uses. Is this what we're supposed to be doing right now? I just want to make sure. Okay, so if that's the case, and then I think by default, if we do that, that creates the piazza that we've been looking for, and it creates the gathering space. Because it creates a space that everybody can go to in the downtown core. So for me, when we're talking about Town Park, I think if we focused on that type of work to bring people there, it would serve the needs and the purposes that we all have. I'll leave my comments for the armory when we get to that section.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Kim.
Well, I'm open to keeping the town park similar to where it's at right now. I know that there was a suggestion to move the band shell to a different corner of town park, but I don't see that makes that much of a difference. You know, I think, I mean, the only area where I'm open to is potentially moving or changing the usage of the baseball diamond. I know a lot of people would like that as is, which is fine, but I think when you have a blank slate, including, you know, the things that's in the town park, you know, it's been ingrained in our heads for such a long time that we think that it just possibly we can't exist without it. But I think that I'm not saying concrete it over, but I think if you create extra space to have that gathering place and other ideas, I mean, I think Mr. Watts has a lot of great ideas, and some of that can spill over into that whole park square. So I think the only thing I have to say really is that I am open to the baseball diamond not being a fixture. I think that's the only thing I can add. Thank you.
Councillor Tom.
Thanks, Mayor Daw. And my thoughts are that we keep, I think our town park is excellent. We have excellent programming there now, but we can make it better. And I think some of the ideas that David Hurd brought in were really amazing with respect to that ball diamond. I think the ball diamond is essential because right now you have entertainment. I mean, with maybe an expanded band shell, you could have theater, music. There's the armory, which we're going to discuss in a bit, but there's all the elements that brings to town park. There's potential for artificial ice, which I think is a great idea. I think the City of Toronto has 54 artificial ice pads, and so it's something that we could look into for that, so we can, you know, in cases of last winter, have skating, even if the climate doesn't really agree. But the baseball diamond for me is a pretty key component. It brings sports into the town park. It brings all sorts of different elements. So people who are into sports can come to town park, and people who are into theater, into music, and into all sorts of different activities, and of course with the playground and so forth. So for me, I think the elements are there, but maybe we can just improve on those elements. And, you know, again, we see just really excited about some of these ideas because, you know, like Councillor Abel mentioned and David Hurd brought forward, the marquees and and you know, framing the park with some entrances, and even improving the baseball diamond to give it that kind of, I don't know if you're going, oh, where's David go? Oh, he's not here. Oh, there he is. Giving it that almost like Fenway Park type feel to it. I think it's really, really neat. I mean, if you talk to people who are with the Baseball Association or people who just play baseball or even just live in the area, that baseball diamond is a hub. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and I don't think Whipper Watson is with us anymore, but I'm sure, you know, I love that idea. To me, that's community, getting together, slow pitch, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I think Town Park is great the way it is. And I know we're not talking about the Armory now, but I think we can enhance it and make it even better than it is now.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Good. Thank you. And through Mr. Mayor, I agree with a lot of what said, but Councillor Tom said. In fact, Town Park is perfect the way it is. We just add to it. What we heard from David Hurd tonight just, you know, brings it to that next level. I mean, it's such a huge draw. I love the bandstand, more seating, outdoor seating for theater concerts. The platform outside is perfect for skating, but also outdoor farmers market, all types of uses for that. The signage to bring us and welcome us to Town Park is perfect. I think that's really all I would want to do there. I think the baseball diamond's essential to stay. Lots of heritage there. The Aurora Diggers softball team goes back a long way, and there would be a lot of people pretty, I think, disappointed if we took that away. Lots and lots of heritage there. I would not change that at all. In fact, the Aurora Diggers had a great year, and the women's softball league, so I think they just want to keep playing there. In fact, I think even making it more of a, with dugouts or however, we can make that even a better space for the baseball players for sure. Yeah, I nothing much more to add to that, but keep it the way it is and add a few of those features.
Thank you. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to say that with the Photon study and all the time that I've looked through reports, not once did I ever hear someone say, we've got to do something with that town park. And so it's great to see the feedback and the consensus here is leave it alone. And I love some of the ideas that David Hurd brought forward. I really, with the baseball diamond. And you know, with adult mixed baseball, that's an institution here. It's been going on 35 years. And they're the type of people you want coming into your downtown because they typically want to get a bite to eat and have a beverage and tell all the great stories about themselves. So it's a great idea for that alone. And I went by several times in the summer when we had concerts or at the farmer's market, and I would often stand right by the Armory and say, look at this. There's the splash pad, and there's kids all playing around. There's a ball game going on. There's a concert or the farmer's market. This park is perfect. It really is perfect. And the setting of the band shell is so strategic, like with the trees and everything in the shade. It's amazing. But enhancing those other enhancements that David Hurd mentioned, getting a nice grandstand, putting some backs into it, that's where we should be spending a little bit of money. And it is just a little bit of money. And you're going to have a great, great feature there. And when we talk about the cultural precinct, if you're walking down, say, a promenade like was suggested down Mosley from the GO station, when you see that park and you can see what's going on in the Armory, you're automatically going to be spellbound, just like we all are. So I'm really for going on that route, and I'm so pleased that we're not discussing the Photon proposal because no one ever asked for it and no one ever took to it. So let's just celebrate what we've got, and with engagement with our community, we get the feedback that we need. Leave it alone. If you're going to consider anything, do some enhancements and celebrate, and we will get to the Armory in just a moment, but yeah, that's where I'm sitting with the park.
Thank you, Councillor. And you just described my baseball career, by the way. Yeah. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. You know, certainly I think we're very fortunate to have the town park. It's well utilized, and I think that the more we enhance our whole overall downtown core, the more that we're going to see town park get used. And so I'm fine with leaving it alone. I think that, you know, it's an old quote, but it's you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and for me, that first step really is making that determination on what we're doing with the buildings. What are we doing with the armory to best utilize that building? It's certainly a tremendous asset for the town, and so that's part of the focus for me tonight. And most specifically, what are we doing with the old library and the old senior centers? To me, that's the first step. Once we make those determinations tonight, we're on our way.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. I'm in support of keeping the baseball diamond where it is. And, you know, we talk about Aurora's small town feeling. Well, that's it. So I think we need to keep that. With respect to the skating, rollerblading idea, I love the idea of roller skating. I'm not sure how we could put a concrete slab down there, because I believe we use, sometimes when our concerts in the park are really busy, and for the Tragically Hip, that whole area was taken up. Although I suppose maybe we could work around that one. But I think the baseball diamond needs to stay.
Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think the park is we have a great base. When you look at it, it's beautiful. I think it's in the right spot. It's going to help with the revitalization. But, you know, as like Councillor Thompson has mentioned, for me, I think we have to jump over a hurdle that I think no other council pretty much has been able to do for quite a long time, and that's with those buildings. And that's, I think, the main thing that we need to do. And I think once we take action on anything like that, we can move forward, as it says, next steps. And that's where we're going to get to. And we'll be able to look at the detailed design aspects of all areas within the cultural precinct. And that's how we move forward. But I think that we definitely need to jump over that first hurdle. And that's what I'm looking to do tonight. And so I'm going to keep my comments brief going through the other two, so I'll just wait till we get to the next session when we can put motions forward. So thank you.
I would just like to keep it to once at this point. I'm sorry? Okay, Councillor Gartner. Question. Here's a question.
I don't know if anybody here can answer. I remember during the Jazz Festival, that whole area where the baseball diamond is and to the east was used for just people to be there and food, etc.
Vendors, I think.
Vendors, and a stage. And could that whole area be used without hurting the surface of the baseball diamond? And if so, we've heard some great ideas. We should try and use it. Yeah. Is the answer yes? We could use that space without hurting the baseball diamond?
I'll go to our sports guy, Councillor Tom. You are now. Congratulations.
Why not? We have, Ribfest takes place on baseball diamonds.
Thank you.
I've got a better idea. Why don't we ask either Mr. Rumuno or Mr. Filippato to take that down and get back to us. I'm pretty sure it's probably not an issue.
Because it's true. It is sometimes an underutilized space.
Thank you. It was interesting because I was originally in support of relocating the baseball diamond, but I mentioned that to Councillor Tom once, and he did threaten me with bodily harm. So I've changed. Although I would still support if we could find a better spot for the baseball diamond. I would still be in support of that. But as it is, I wouldn't move it right now. I like the idea of expanding, and I do appreciate Mr. Hurd's idea of expanding the current band shell, especially by adding some additional space onto the back. I think that makes a lot of sense because when you're over there in the summer and the bands are there, they have a change room that's probably smaller than the size of the van they use to bring their equipment. So I think that there's a lot of merit in doing something like that. So I think enhancing the town park is the way to go, and certainly looking, I know there's been discussions of having an artificial surface which could be used in the summer as either rollerblading or skating, seating area for concerts, patio area. Samantha, can you turn that down a snort? Thank you. We are getting a new, right, Madam Clerk? We're getting a new system. So certain, and I don't know about changing the orientation of the, because I think that would be awfully expensive for what you'd probably get out of it. But maybe you can add some kind of facility to the front of the stage where you could reorient. So I think there's some opportunities there, but overall, I probably wouldn't change the structure of the town park as it sits right now. And by the way, what's happening right now is Mr. Nederoz, Mr. Ramuno, and Mr. Filipetto are taking copious notes with respect to our thoughts here. So thank you very much, Council. And now we will start with Mr. Councillor Marakis. Councillor Marakis, with respect to Armour, if I may. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, I'm going to keep it real brief. The building needs to be repurposed. I think it's safe to say I think everyone thinks the same. What it would be, you know what? I think there's many ideas out there, and there are a lot of really good ideas that have been put forward. And so I'm looking forward so we take those next steps and we start getting into those design details. But repurpose for sure, 100%.
Councillor Gartner.
Yes, I agree. Do we know how much it would cost to fix up the old armory? I mean, it's a very unappetizing space right now.
Mr. Nederoz is just checking.
And I guess no matter what we do with it or no matter who uses it, it's got to look better than it does.
2.2.
Yeah.
It's on the screen.
$2.2 million. To do what to it? Thank you. Through you,
Mr. Chair. That would basically be to bring it all up to code and to make sure the structure of the building has integrity for the long term. So it doesn't contemplate any specific purpose. As you get into some of the, if you were putting industrial kitchens in and so on, you would add some expense to that. I don't think that cost would include everything possible, but it certainly would give you a solid building with whatever exterior renovations and those kinds of things you want to do.
So to code means the washrooms, the insulation, just to give a really good shell and a usable interior. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Leaving aside the $2 million price tag, I think we can debate that another time. But certainly, I think it was all of Council's hope that when we acquired the armory, that it would become a well-utilized asset for the community. Up to this point, we really haven't put the required investment into it to, address some of the issues, especially, when it comes to the washrooms and some of the other things. And so I think it's long overdue. I'd like to see us utilize it more and do what we need to do so that we can use it. The ideas that have been presented and what we've talked about in the past, there's so much potential with that building, and it's not being realized. And I think it's our job to really bring out the best in it.
Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And of course, last term, we worked very hard diligently to acquire that armory. The history behind it is notable. It was significant events happened there, many of them social, but there were some, way back in the day, there were some speeches that were given there. There's been many community social events, dances. It goes on and on. I think Shauna White did an excellent job of bringing all those things forward in her cultural precinct. But it gives great detail, and I'm sure Mr. Hurd knows as much or more, because I think he was involved in that. But the idea that this is finally back in the community hands is outstanding, and this is where it belongs. Again, it's part of that park. It goes right back to the very beginning of our town, and to have that back in our hands is so significant. What to do with it, it's got to be community. I'm all for repurposing it, but I think we should have a plan what that design is. So I'm sort of on the lines of Councillor Thompson. There's one thought of $2 million, and I don't know who did it, but was it the repurposing study by ACOM? Okay, so they were probably just giving some generalities because it was kind of general what they were given. But if we were specifically talking about opening up the sides, the flaps to share out into the west side, that canopy to bring the roof around and expose some of the history and architect that's there so that we could display museum artifacts and take pride in that. Whatever goes in there is mobile so that you can move it to host an event, but then you can bring it all back in and then of course conform with building and other ideas. I think that's basically what we want to try and get going on to repurposing that. And I think the first step would be to get some design, get some of these ideas and get a design there so that we can then put that out for tender and a rendering so that we get buy-in, and then we can go ahead and say, okay, now that price tag is 2.1 million and everyone seems to be for it. We've checked with everyone and then we're on our way. So I think the first thing to do is get a rendering and a design in place, see if we captured what has been given to us, and then move forward from that way, and then we can get that price and move forward. I think we have the will to do that, and I think the community certainly is in on that. And if we take all that money that we're going to move everything around, we just take a fraction of that and build that armory, I think we're well on our way to establishing what we want in the town park to enhance and for the library square and for the downtown revitalization. So my thoughts are, Mr. Mayor, let's get a design and let's show people what we got in mind. Let's open up that west side and celebrate what that great heritage is. And it may be, we may be allowed to take that exterior and jazz it up, you know, get some murals or something on there so it doesn't look like an old barn. It's got siding on it right now, so we could maybe put another surface on there. We do have some latitude on maintaining the heritage and what to do with that, so that might be able to do that and give it that wow appeal when people walk by. So those are sort of where I'm coming from, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and much of what all councillors said on that side of the table. And I just wanted to add, what I think is really critical is I absolutely want to repurpose the building. Some of the elements that Christopher Watts brought forward to me are so significant in everything I've heard. In fact, what Councillor Abel was saying on pages 22 and 23 of the presentation, it mentions what the west entrances can look like, exterior elements, east entrance, salvage beams that we already have in our possession. And what an amazing look, sort of really taking that kind of a farmery, heritage, appealing concepts. And we talked about this recently where we have to make our exterior buildings appealing to draw people in. You know, those twinkly lights and those lovely, plantings and containers, really important to draw people in, and then gets busy and more people want to go where it's busy. As long as there's people just want to go there. So how do we bring them forward? So really exciting opportunities on how we can lay out the building. And I really would love staff to consider seriously working with the concepts that were provided to us tonight, because I think I know a lot of the work's been done in terms of what we were all dreaming about and all the efforts put forward here. So just again, lots of great work, and I can't help but referring back to this presentation because just pops out of the pages at you. One of the ones too, and just in terms of external look, is the Waka Farm, and having something so significant and really, appealing on the outside of the building. So lots of great opportunities here, lots of mobility in terms of setting something up or moving. It's a very flexible space, and I think that's exactly what we're all kind of dreamed about as well. So looking forward to moving forward quickly on this one. Hopefully it sounds like we're getting there.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Dell. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I think my opinion is to repurpose the building. Everyone's kind of mentioned that as well, but I think, again, just hitting on some points, and this is just my comments to staff in terms of what I'd like to see. I think one of the biggest things is the heritage of the area. I think that's an asset. So I think whatever we want to do in terms of repurposing, we should embrace the heritage of that area. I think you don't have to, remain in a point in time, but I just think that is such an asset for that area that other towns and other areas of town don't have. I really like the idea of reorienting, or at least reorienting a portion of the building into Town Park, and so instead of it's just the armory at the corner, it's kind of an opening up to Town Park and vice versa. So reorientation to Town Park. I like the idea, again, it was in the presentation of whatever we do to repurpose it as being adaptive. So you have as much uses as possible, so you can program the space to a wide variety of groups and people and get a wide variety of different people coming into the Armory. And I think that also helps with, again, just keeping the Armory well used as opposed to just repurposing it for one purpose. And I also think that if you do make it more of an adaptive space, that if you haven't contemplated future uses, you're able to incorporate those in a bit more easy. So that's something I'd like to see for repurposing. Again, other councils have talked about it being a gathering place and a community hub. I think that that's, again, what most of us are looking for. And I think that being an adaptive space would lend itself to that because, again, you have more groups from different walks of life being able to come in and enjoy it. And, I mean, the last thing I'll say is that I think this could be, I know there's other pieces to Town Park that are great, but this really has the ability to be an anchor for Town Park and bringing people in who, again, may not use Town Park for a variety of reasons. So, again, I think those are my kind of comments with I'd like to see in terms of repurposing, but I think, as Councillor Humphrey said, we're kind of taking a step in the right direction. I think all of us would like to see that space repurposed into something really awesome for the town. Thanks.
Councillor Kim.
You know, up to now, I found that we've heard a lot of inside-the-box ideas, and tonight I heard a lot of outside-the-box thinking, and it's got me really excited about what Town Park and our downtown could look like. And you know, when I look at the Armory, you know, it's not that big, and I've been inside it many times, and I find it claustrophobic even with just the farmers market because there's a lot of people going in and out. I find myself, if you're invited to a party and you're going to a small building or a small house, just kind of you think, oh no, it's going to be kind of a hot and kind of claustrophobic evening. But when you have a large space, you just feel more, you anticipate the day, the evening. And so I kind of envision the Armory being bigger, and I'm all for refurbishing it. Maybe even having a second floor or adding an extension to it if that's allowable based on the heritage category of the building. But I just like it bigger so that a lot of the great ideas that we've heard so far can all fit in without it being a cramped space, because even if it's successful, not many people want to wait in line to get in or be inside and you're kind of sweaty. You want a large space, and so I'm all for repurposing the Armory, but even making it bigger, maybe even adding a second floor so that all the great ideas that we heard tonight and previous nights could take place.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be a little bit contrarian. I think we should demolish it and put in like a house of mirrors, maybe like a clown fun house, something like that. I think it worked really well. No, like everybody else, I think it makes a lot of sense to repurpose this facility, have a mixed-use space that can be used for a lot of adaptable purposes. I think that falls in line with what we've spoken about before, and I think ultimately it falls in line with what everybody wants, because I think everyone wants to see a facility that is well utilized, that is a gathering place for the community. I think exactly what goes in there, there have been a lot of great ideas shown to us tonight, and there's an opportunity to grow on all of those as well and move forward. So I think it's important that we invest in this building. I think it's important that we bring out the heritage aspects of this building. I think this is one of the most important buildings historically that we have, so I'd like to see us move forward on putting in a community space that can be utilized by everyone.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to remind Council, Mr. Nader Rosny sent out an email this morning with a link to the repurposing study, which is on our website, so anybody can pull it down. So I'm just looking at the first section, which talks about it. And the first comment is, and this is the ACOM report, the Armory is a recognized federal heritage building because of its historical associations and its architectural value. So I'm not sure what we could do in terms of some of the expansion, but it's certainly worth the investigation. An interesting thing for anybody who thinks that we move slowly is that in 1874, there was a speech where the former Ontario Premier called upon the federal government to enact electoral reform. So, so this goes back a while. I'm sorry? No, we did not mention OMB reform. I think the OMB came into effect slightly after that. Not much. What, 1890s, I think? Anyways, I agree with the comments. See, it is, and certainly we, everybody on council in 2014 saw the benefit of acquiring this piece of property because it was a significant piece of our history as well as filling up the town park, quite frankly. So, and certainly the ideas that Mr. Watts presented this evening are, I would think, would be, and Mr. Nader Rosny's made notes to look at how we could, incorporate that with a number of the other ideas that we've received along the way. But I definitely think that we should be repurposed. Hold on, Councillor, we're speaking once. And so I think to give this back to our staff to carry forward with that, indeed, but something sooner rather than later, because we have had this for a couple of years. And by the way, the town actually acquired this on my anniversary. So whether that has any significance, I have no idea. It probably doesn't. So I definitely support repurposing it and bringing it up to snuff, because I think it's really something that will fill out our town park. Councillor Gartner.
When staff looks at the Armory, could they find out what we can do with it as a heritage building, whether we could do anything with the west wall, and also the capacity? I know there's certain capacities under the fire code. Thanks.
Thank you. So I will, number 3, the one we've all been waiting for. Save the best for the last. We'll start with Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not often I get nostalgic, but I think I've determined that that's the only reason why I'd like to see the old library stay up. It's where I first got my first library card when I came to Aurora. I think it's a great old building, even though it's not that old. I understand everybody who wants to tear it down, but there's a piece of me that wants to see that building and that facility stay up. I don't know if it's because I see the value in having the reinforced concrete floor on 2 levels that used to hold up the stacks, and I can think about all of the cool uses that can be used because of that. I don't know if it's because it's where, I got my first Tintin book when I came up here. But I see something in this building that I personally would like to see maintained. With regards to the old senior center, I agree, knock it down. But when it comes to the old library, for me, there's something there. And in saying that, with the uses that we're proposing, I agree with most of them. The only one that I don't necessarily agree with in this location is a public square. When you have a town park a block away, I can't think of a bigger, better town square than a whole block of park. So for me, that's why I see something like that in a much grander scale. But everything else, I think, is a very big need for the town of Aurora and for the redevelopment. And I think especially when we want to bring people down to the downtown core, you have to have something for them to go to. And so it's necessitated by having to move forward and get rid of some old buildings. So those are my comments. I'm sure we'll make a decision tonight. I'm ready to make a decision tonight. But ideally, I'd like to see one of those buildings remain.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Kim.
I think My view has always been that, you start fresh with a blank canvas, and so my position is you tear down both buildings. And, what do you put in place of those buildings? I'm not sure exactly, but I do know that, the three things that I find in my various readings that attract people are entertainment, food, and eye candy, something visual that will...
Like you.
Not me. And whether, water feature has been bandied about, and, whether it's something natural or man-made, something that will bring you, local people who work in that area, or people who want to come and just have some meditation time or downtime, and you need that, watery kind of noise background to kind of get you in that meditative state, or something visual that will kind of hypnotize you to keep you there. And so I think those are the three things that you need, something visual or something to get your senses going, food, great food, and what did I say, the other one?
The eye candy.
No, I said that already. Entertainment. But definitely I think those two buildings, I think we need to get a fresh start, and I think they need to come down.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. And just, I guess off the